All right, all right, all right. Hello, Star family. How is everybody this Sunday before the new moon on Wednesday? Closing out the lunar month. Very curious to see how you all are feeling the energy. Let me just make sure you can see me. Just let me know in the chat if you can see me okay in the top right corner, if you can hear me okay, and to make sure that the audio levels are good. Sometimes the music can be a little bit too loud or a little bit too soft, and we do want to make sure that it's just right. Great to see familiar names and faces. Great to see everybody here. Nima, thanks for joining. Great to have you. Margaret, always a pleasure. Margaret, the moderator, always making sure we have those links and everything's moderated and taken care of. Thank you so much, Margaret. Aquarius Sky Clock, good evening. Great to see you, Aquarius. Manda, great to see you as always. Happy Sunday, Athen and everyone, says Manda. Thank you so much, Manda. Erica Alexandria, always a pleasure. Hello, Star friends. Happy summer solstice on this cloudy day here in southeast part of the United States. I think I did hear that the southeast is getting some rain. Parts of Florida, I think we're having some drought, which was very interesting to me, being that Florida is usually quite rainy. But I think that's probably a good thing for those of you there in the southeast. If there's been some droughts, I think it's nice to get some of that rain there. I asked everyone, how's everyone feeling? It looks like, of course, most of you are just waking up. Most of you in the States. We do try to fit in this live stream at a time that's best for all. Right now it's a little bit later in Europe. Unfortunately, our Australian friends can't join us unless they're up in the middle of the night, but we try to accommodate as many of us as possible. But thanks so much for joining, especially if it's particularly early. But I guess it does make it a bit difficult to see what the energy feels like when you're bright and early, but be very curious either way. If you can let me know in the chat if anything does come through. Don't watch. Great to see you. Thanks so much. Also cloudy in the Pacific Northwest. That might be normal. Although in June, I guess the Pacific Northwest gets a little more sunny days. So I guess for you guys, hoping for more sunny days there. Creative, cool name. Creative Guru, great to see you. Good morning. Still technically morning here in Colorado. Still trying to wake up, get my morning coffee. Karen, hello. Christine, great to see you. Grand day, Athen, and all of the beautiful cosmic souls. Woody, great to see you. Hey everyone, greetings from New Hampshire. Feeling fairly calm. A lot of things need to happen in my world. Woody. So I hope things do happen there for you, Woody. Let's see. Like I said, we have this new moon, which I'm quite excited about. Those of you part of the MTZ Insiders. And by the way, if you're not signed up to the newsletter and you're joining us here in the live stream, you should definitely be signed up. You know, we publish articles. We, of course, post the live streams there. We got the weeklies there. But discounts, articles, extra content, basically a lot of stuff that isn't normally covered just on YouTube. So Margaret will post a link down there in the chat, and if you can go ahead and subscribe. If you're not, it's a great way to stay up to date with True Sidereal and stay connected to the community that way. It's called MTZ Insiders, as you will be an insider in all the happenings of True Sidereal. But anyways, a new moon on Wednesday. So we are in the ending phase of the current lunar month. It's very natural and normal for things to be dying down, creating some space, and really completing things from the energy we've been working with for the past month. Now, me personally, I do like this new moon, so it's going to be happening in Gemini, as you can see here. And let's go ahead and animate this back a little bit. So on Wednesday, June 25th, it looks like. So sun and moon conjunct, new moon conjunct Jupiter. Okay, so it's great to have Jupiter conjunctions in general, Jupiter new moons. Now, Jupiter is not all roses and flowers and colorful stuff. Sometimes with Jupiter, we can be a bit pie in the sky, maybe a bit over optimistic. There's a lot of over and under extremes that can go on with that buoyant energy. But generally, it's great to utilize that Jupiter energy, and we usually feel it as a sense of open-mindedness and maybe that there's things to be hopeful about, that there's opportunities to cultivate, and just a general feeling of being, again, a little bit more free-spirited with stuff. So it is going to be in Gemini, which is actually, many say, is a difficult placement for Jupiter to be in, because Jupiter naturally rules Sagittarius, which is opposite Gemini. So you've got Jupiter in the opposite sign from where it prefers to be. Sagittarius is more about freedom and expansion. Gemini is very practical. So I like it though because it balances things out. It makes things very grounded. And so while Jupiter's pie in the sky, it becomes more grounded in Gemini. So this whole new beginning is about developing more of our practical minds. How can things be actually implemented in our life very practically? How can we, really cultivate the left brain, which is the part of the brain that rules communication, rationality, more scientific thinking, or in the sense of verifying things in the physical world, putting things to tangible use. Okay, so it really offsets that Jupiter, and I think it creates a nice balance. So new beginning here, a reset to the lunar month. We've got a touch of expansion and open-mindedness, but I think all grounded in the realm of getting some of that healthy mental and healthy communicative energy there. So a great time for maybe a little bit of social energy, connecting to peers, maybe siblings, neighbors, maybe business and trade, things that deal with correspondence and exchanging with others. But internally as well, great time for picking up that book, doing some writing or journaling, doing stuff that might involve correspondence or language, engineering, mathematics, more of this kind of, left brain stuff. So any intentions you want to set around this, again, we'll feel this mostly on Wednesday. Right now, we're just closing things out. But the new moon will be squaring up to Saturn, which is normally a challenging thing. It's going to be squaring up to both Saturn and Neptune, who are in very close conjunction right now, as we've been talking a lot about here on this channel. But anyway, Saturn is in many ways an opposite to Jupiter as well. They're really a polarity to each other. So where Jupiter is about, hey, be open-minded, believe, and it can come true. Saturn is, putting on the brakes a little bit and saying, okay, let's make sure everything we're doing is responsible. It's true to our long-term goals. And this is where Neptune and all this in Pisces really comes in. Making sure that what we're doing is soul-aligned, soul-fulfilling, going to create more space in our life, and is good for our mental health and spiritual health, right? So these are squares, and there's a tense energy with squares, but nothing really impactful happens in life without squares in many ways. I mean, it's really the squares that are the action energy and the implementation energy. And so anyways, Jupiter squaring Saturn and Neptune. This has actually already been going on. In fact, if you want to trace this all the way back, we can trace the Jupiter and Saturn cycle that started in 2020. So as many of you know, of course, 2020 was a huge year globally, okay, for multiple reasons, not only with the collective stuff, but look at your personal life. Like for me personally, a lot of new beginnings happened that year. But that was the seed of what now is being implemented, not just this month, really this whole year, because of the Jupiter square Saturn. But it's being activated right now, and it's being activated in this more immediate sense. So I would say, big picture, great to reflect back on 2020. What can be now implemented, put to action, challenged with to move forward. That's maybe for this lunar month, and that could be great. And of course, in the short term, it's just a great month to be, as it always is in Gemini season, again, curious, interested, flexible, adaptive, a little social, all that kind of stuff that we're talking about there with Jupiter. So anyways, Woody, I hope things get a fresh new start there for you too, as I hope it does for all of us here. Christine? Oh, yep. Sprout Queen, great to see you. Enjoying a bowl of fresh mango and dragon fruit from our farm and taking a break from the outside world. Well, very happy to hear that. I always get excited when I hear about farms. As much as I'm not gardening and doing agriculture that much, I love it, and I wish I could do more of it. So very happy for you there that able to do that and take some time out. It's very nice. And again, this corresponds with the ending of the lunar cycle, being that it's a great time to close things out, let the energies die down before the slow new beginning starting on Wednesday. Don't watch. I need a bowl of that. Yeah, sounds very nice. Donna, all good here from the UK. We have rain too, so my plants are happy. Always positive when it rains there for the plants. Capital 8, another cool name. Tuning in from Texas. Energy is very hot and bright, perfect for summer. Yep, and peak summer solstice. I mean, yesterday was, but definitely in the peak summer solstice energy. From a seasonal sense, yep, it is usually a time of yearly shifts and changes anyways. I mean, there definitely is from the from the planetary side of things, being that we have these very important aspects we've been talking about. But of course, summer solstice plays a large role there, and it is all about that energy and bright. At least for those of us in the northern hemisphere, of course, we have to remember that, of course, those in the southern hemisphere having the winter there for them. But peak times of transition, and for the north, going from the increasing of energy to now the decreasing of energy. Even though we're in basically the beginning of summer, solar wise, we are decreasing energy right now as we approach the winter solstice for us in the north. And this is about now starting to implement and apply a lot of the momentum building that we've had earlier in the year. And of course, for those of us in the southern hemisphere that are probably asleep right now, at least most of them, unless we have some people tuning in from South Africa, or South America as well, of course. But if you're in the southern, then there is this increasing energy now. So as we approach now the next 6 months, building, coming out of the lowest energy phase of the season. Cool. Thank you, Margaret. Felicity, great to see you. Aloha. Okay, cool. So creative is writing a book. I would say, generally speaking, and I'm considering it, I don't want to get the cat out of the bag too early, but I'm also considering writing a book on true sidereal. I would say generally, if you've ever had an inclination to write or do something involving language, generally speaking, of course, everyone has their own individual chart, but generally speaking, it should be a really good year for this. Again, Jupiter expanding that Gemini energy. And maybe it's a time to get all this started right now. Even publishing because of Jupiter, right? But any type of writing, anything that involves language, really any kind of communication, there's a lot to learn. There's expansion with Jupiter. There's some great things to utilize this year for everybody. Glow with the flow. Great to see you. Had a vivid dream that I actually wrote out. What's wrote out? Wrote out like maybe writing? Christian, great to see you. I've been seeing the astrology play out on the news with Mars entering Leo at the start of Operation Rising Lion, and then to top it all off, Operation Midnight Hammer yesterday. I don't know exactly what those operations are, but yeah, if we're talking about some of the more fiery stuff that we've seen collectively, like maybe with Iran or anything else, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're saying, but I know that's going on right now. Right, there's a lot of fire there with Mars and Leo. I would attribute a lot of this to the fact that we've had a lot of these squares with Mars, if you recall. And I'm hoping that we're closing that out, because it was the last lunar cycle, the one in Taurus, the one we're finishing now, that had a lot of those squares to Mars. It was the sun, if you recall, the sun was squaring Mars, and there's a lot of that tensor kind of energy. So I'm really hoping collectively that this is all finalizing over these just few days, and that this whole new lunar cycle will create a fresh new energy about that. And that, of course, speaks to anything that's been fiery in your own personal life as well. So anyone experiencing any kind of that fiery kind of stuff. But I would say, I think that's attributed more to the fact that Mars has been squaring. If you do look at history, you'll actually see a lot of conflicts or wars or really, fiery times, what I'm calling fiery times, which encompasses a lot of things, not just geopolitically, but even domestically through, protests or whatever else. Like Mars squares are actually crazy how accurate they are. And it's not that every time you have a Mars square, you have something major like that. But Mars squares are, generally quite rare in the sense that Mars is the slowest moving of the fast movers. So it's not as often as like a Mercury square or Sun or Venus square. It takes Mars 2.5 years to go through the whole zodiac. And so depending on the planet that's involving, squares are basically, a year apart, depending if you're not using the conjunctions and oppositions, and they're, basically the full two there from either side. But anyways, Mars squares, and I think that that's part of the previous cycle, and I hope that we're getting that fresh new start. But yet, Mars in Leo is great for that fiery energy around self-expression, and again, hopefully channeled constructively. So I felt it like I have more passion for having a little bit more fun in my life, a little bit more play. I've been getting into more play lately, even reading a book called Play, realizing how much play I've actually missed, in my past experiences, and how important it is to have it in our day-to-day life, right? Like I tend to take things very seriously, and, I work a lot. And so a lot of my experiences become, more dense and more, serious like that. And so realizing the importance of play, but anything else Mars and Leo related, the importance of self-expression, the importance of being direct with our self-expression, the importance of putting energy towards the things and people that we love in life. These are all great things to incorporate with Mars and Leo there. And not to mention that Venus is also leaving Aries. And so when we are talking about fiery energy, like I said, we've had quite a bit lately, not just from those squares and with Mars and Leo, but Venus has been in Aries as well. This has been for a few weeks almost. And Venus is finishing out as well. So Venus will leave Aries around Saturday. And then she goes into a much more grounded Taurus energy, her home sign of Taurus, where she's much more comfortable. And that'll be for a little over a month there. Keeping things much more, I think, just adding a little bit more earth energy. And again, maybe dissipating a little bit of that fire energy, even though we'll still have Mars in Leo there. But thanks for sharing, Christian. It's always great to get different perspectives, and I'm really curious what you all are perceiving and aware of, and I can do my best to tie in the astrology with some of this stuff. So Daniela asks, hey everyone, I have a general question. How do you feel about the two explanations on retrograde energy? One being that retrograde means the opposite energy of a planet, or that they are stronger. That's an excellent question. So let's start with the stronger one, because this one makes the most sense, I think, physically in the world. So whenever a planet's retrograde, it means, so first of all, fundamentally, and maybe for those that don't know exactly what a retrograde planet's one that appears to be moving backwards in the sky, or at least relative to the constellations. So for example, if Mercury's not, but if Mercury was retrograde right now, we would not expect it to move in its normal direction, which would be counterclockwise, which is towards Leo, moving this way, but instead going clockwise back into Gemini, so reversing, right? So it appears to be reversing. And why is that? Well, it's because it's like two cars passing each other. If we're on Earth and we're in one car, and if we consider that Mercury is sort of lapping around like this, if you follow the mainstream, description of what the planets are doing, then that means that once Mercury gets very close to Earth, it's going to be moving right, faster than us. And what that's going to appear to look like from our point of view is it's going to appear like, relative to the constellations, that we're almost sort of passing, or that Mercury is going backwards in the sky there, right? So if you imagine two cars, one car's, and this is all relative to the landscape, you have two cars passing each other. It's not that one car is moving backwards, but one car is going to appear to be moving backwards while the other one's passing. So that's the sort of optical illusion of a retrograde. But what's really important to note is that when these retrogrades are happening, the other planet, in this example Mercury, is closer to Earth. And so that's where we get the stronger energy, okay? And it's very true. So what you'll find is that, like, again, for example, when Mercury is retrograde, things like communication become amplified. Our thoughts become amplified. Now, there's a caveat to this, and that is if you already have Mercury retrograde in your chart, and I do recommend everyone check to see if you have Mercury, Venus, or Mars retrograde in your chart, because if you do, this actually speaks to a strong part of your personality, and one that'll hopefully make a little more sense as I describe this. But anyways, when the planet's retrograde, it's closest to Earth, and so in this case, it becomes amplified. Now, the next thing we hear about retrogrades is that it means that it's what Daniela said is the opposite energy. What I'm going to elaborate on is that it's the internal energy. We can think of retrogrades as being sort of an internal process, where, like, when Mercury's retrograde, we notice things aren't moving forward very much, right? Like more reflective, or going back and redoing things, or opposite, like Daniela said. So maybe during a Mercury retrograde, our car might not be functioning as well, or something with the computer needs fixing, or some correspondence gets lost, or some communication mistranslated. These are the kind of typical things we hear about during Mercury retrograde. So these two things seem very opposite, right? You have one thing it's moving backwards and therefore should be probably more internal, and something that's stronger. Well, what I think is the best way of explaining this is that if we think about Jungian psychology, Jung very geniusly pointed out that it's actually the unconscious energies, or the internalized energies, that play out unconsciously in the world. So for example, Mercury retrograde individuals, if you happen to have Mercury retrograde in your chart, these are individuals that again are probably like Geminis. They're very mercurial, they're very much that Mercury energy. So they maybe speak a lot, they maybe communicate a lot, they maybe, when they write an email, it might be very long. These are not, these are overgeneralizations, but the point is that they can be very mercurial like that, very mental like that, very communicative like that. But what's going on from their perspective is that they're rethinking, they're reevaluating, they're figuring things out, they're thinking out loud. When they write, they're thinking out loud. There's a lot, you can see how whatever is playing out in the unconscious mind tends to actually, whatever's happening internally tends to be amplified externally. And while the person may not be very aware that they're speaking so much or writing so much or whatever, they're not maybe as aware, because again, they're mostly aware of the internal process, right? The figuring it out, the redoing it in their heads. But from the perceiver, from the outside, the perceiver can notice a lot of that stronger energy. So this is very, very conducive. This fits very well with this model of astrology, that yes, a Mercury is both internal and stronger. Just like we see in psychology, when something is reworking but also amplified, or internal or unconscious, and thus being projected very strongly in the outside world. So that's the best explanation I can give to retrograde energy, and hopefully that explains, if you have Mercury, Venus, or Mars, these are the most personal. We don't have to pay too much attention to the outer planets being retrograde or not, as those are more collective. Jupiter's retrograde for 4 months out of the year, Saturn 5 months, and the outer planets 6 months. So we have almost a 50-50 chance that those will be. But if you do have Mercury, Venus, or Mars retrograde, that does play out very personally, and something that you can now look at from this new lens. You take whatever that planet's about, Mercury's communication, Mercury's the mind, Venus is connection, relationships, values. So this retrograde, again, internalizing how they're connecting, maybe relationship energy, but then maybe they're, that's coming out more in the outer world. Mars is assertion, self-assertion, self-expression when it comes to the self or independence. So again, a little bit more internalized, but coming through quite strongly, is very likely very independent and assertive people there. So check that out. Check to see if you do have some those faster movers retrograde. Margaret did post a link there in the chat, and see how that fits for you. But hopefully it also answers your question there, Danielle. It's a great question and something that I don't think is that understood or even talked about as much in this way in mainstream astrology. Ari Gold, great to see you. Much love, tuning in from Iowa. Athen is the best astrologer 100. Thank you so much, Ari. No doubt about it, says Ari. Thank you so much. DM, it's great to hear. Athen, please write that book. I look forward to purchasing it. Thank you so much, DM. I think I'll go ahead and do that. All right, got a lot of book writers. Donna, also, the events in my life from 2019 to now certainly could have written a book. Crazy synchronicities and events, and I'm sure there's many more to come. I love literature, so it could be in the cards for me. Great to hear. All right, so we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up here shortly. Wanda E, hello. I think lots of events that have been taking place is aligned with astrology. Trump's moves and others. Yeah, I do follow a lot of what I do hear about in the mainstream. I do try to fit it with the astrology, and I like to think of it as the weather. I think the astrology is merely telling us what time it is in the cosmos, and although we can all do different things at different times, we do tend to go through certain themes at certain times, right? Just like the seasons, for example. But we can still do anything. We can technically plant a garden in the winter and we can make that work. We can stay indoors in the summer. We can go out when it's raining. Obviously, certain times are more conducive for other things, for certain things at certain times, but it's great to be in alignment with the nature, and I think astrology is a great way to be in alignment. And if you think about our ancestors, they would all, every night, they would see the stars. And for sure, they were talking about them and coming up with these stories and allegories, and probably even what we think of as readings, by looking at where these travelers of the sky are, where these planets are relative to things. So Donna says, I'm Sagittarius and tropical. Kind of strange to think of myself as a Scorpio and sidereal. Yep, usually a very big difference like this. And I still, like I've said before, still find the tropical chart to be accurate in the physical self. I think the tropical is the seasonal self, in the sense that it's the karma, it's the physical, if you think about what the seasons are. But I firmly believe that the true sidereal especially is the fundamental self, or the spiritual self, having these experiences. And also check to see if you do have other planets in Sagittarius, other Sagittarius kind of energy. Maybe your 9th house is very activated. Maybe Jupiter is quite prominent in your chart. This would actually speak to a lot of Sagittarius qualities as well. So Glow with the Flow says, how do I know if a dream is for me personally or for the collective? That's a great question. I'm assuming this is in response to what we were talking about earlier about Neptune and the mental health and spiritual health stuff. There's really a fine line, if any, when it comes to Neptune and Pisces, and whether it's our emotions or the collective. And what we'll find is that when we have strong Neptune in our chart, or certain times like this where Neptune's very prominent, like Neptune is right now, squaring up to the sun, it's very difficult to tell if there even is a difference between what we're feeling internally and what's going on collectively. Pisces, the fish, and Neptune ruling this, is all about the connection to the source or the cosmos or God, you basically have two fish, which is here, tied together by a string, which is here. And those two strings are connected at a singular point. And I think that's representing that we're all connected to that singular point. And so when you're dealing with Pisces energy, you're very much dealing with the collective feelings, the collective unconscious. People who are very Pisces, have a strong Pisces in their chart, Sun in Pisces, these are all people who, while they themselves can have these deeper spiritual or emotional experiences, I believe they're very much connected to that cosmic energy as well. And this goes to the whole young thing too, that, we're working with the collective unconscious, with everything. We're all connected to that, and we're all experiencing it at the same time. Donna, I'm new to Sidereal. I found your channel through the awesome Decode Your Reality channel. Really happy to hear that. It's a great channel. Yeah, don't watch. The last couple months have been really heavy dreams, lucid every night. I've had very strong dreams too. Saturn and Pisces, now the squares, Saturn and Neptune. Mars was being squared by them not too long ago. There's been a lot of strong Pisces and Neptune energy this year in general. Rogueways, great to see that you found me through Rogueways. Thank you, Don't Watch. So Marangaz says, hi everyone. You were talking about planets that amplified as they are closer to Earth. I once had a strong full moon experience. My senses were overstimulated and that made me scared. Yeah, that's a powerful energy there, full moon. I mean, I would say experientially that might be the strongest because, planets are very far away. If we think of a little bit more of Newtonian physics, I come from a little more of the quantum world in the sense that I don't personally believe like the planets are having like some kind of direct effect on us, but the moon absolutely does. And if you think about the full moon being that all this sun energy is bouncing off of the moon and landing on Earth, as we're seeing it and experiencing it. And that astrologically implies the highest energy of the lunar cycle. If I was asked what's the most like experientially strongest energy from astrology or anything else in the sky, I would say, aside from an eclipse, so obviously a lunar eclipse would be, solar eclipse would be, but a lunar eclipse is basically a full moon that is eclipsed by the Earth anyways, but outside of those, definitely the full moon. The new moon's more subtle, like what we're experiencing next week. It's more of a reset. It's more of a subtle new beginning. It's the lowest energy of the lunar cycle. Don't watch. Last retrograde took out 2 cars. Yeah. I always see a lot of cars broken down in retrogrades. I don't know if I'm looking out for them, but I swear that I notice a lot more breakdowns and issues there. It's a good time to do maintenance, and that's why I always say like use the retrogrades to work on things and figure things out, because using the retrograde for like car maintenance, for example, or computer maintenance or anything else is, I think, really what the period's calling us to do. And if we don't do that or we neglect it, I think that's when or maybe the universe is just forcing us to do it. And sometimes that's the universe's way to force us to literally slow down or rethink things or go in a new direction, and sometimes it can be very literal, like involving cars. Thank you so much, Atelier. Thank you, Athen. Wishing you a blessed solstice. You as well, Atelier. Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. Let me just see if there's any last questions, see if I can get everyone answered today. Holly, great to see you. Bobby. Yep, you can always watch these live streams from the beginning if you missed anything. All right, and Jean, for personal questions, you can get in touch with I do recommend Anna Maria. Anna Maria is our in-house astrologer now. She's absolutely fantastic. A lot of you have already gotten a reading from Anna Maria. Margaret, if you could put that link to Anna Maria's readings. But she's great. She'll be able to answer these kinds of personal questions. You want to know about relationships, anything else. She is definitely the one to reach out to. And there'll be a discount link that Margaret will put there. And if you do want a reading, do get in touch for her. Blessed summer solstice, Monica. All right, so everyone, have a fantastic week. Thank you so much. Have a great new moon. Very curious if you can see how the energy feels for you. We'll reconvene next Sunday at the same time as usual. Maybe share some experiences. The energy will be a little different by that point, as we'll have built a little bit of momentum in the lunar cycle. But have a great fresh new start, and wishing you all the very best. Take care.